And we are live. Hello, my name is Eric Stahl.
And I'm Daryl Scott.
We are your hosts for the new podcast,
Throwin Wrenches.
All right, see, we're going to play off each other. We're brand new at this. Again, my name's Eric Stahl, and I am from Pekin area of Illinois. And Daryl and I have been friends for a little bit, and we decided to start a podcast on cars. Daryl is like the biggest car guy I really know outside the car business.
Physically, I'm rather large, but I also, I do, as Eric said, got a little collection of some older vehicles, some newer stuff. Always got a project I drag home because I feel, kind of bad for stuff that gets neglected. So I like something to do, and that's kind of my thing.
Yeah, so we've done some podcasts before. I've done a podcast for years, and Daryl's been in the radio business, so I'm a radio nerd, so I kind of worship at the feet of Daryl, and I work in the car business.
That works pretty well because, when we get together at, some of the local shows or just get-togethers at watering holes, we always have something to talk about.
Yeah, we do outside of beer. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we do love a craft beer, so
that's true.
If we do talk about it, forgive us. I do want to give a shout-out. The reason that we're doing this show and the purpose, I don't want to say there's no purpose, but we were brought together on a blind date by our good friend Dustin over at the Drunken Lullabies podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Dustin's a great guy. Puts on actually several different podcasts now. So no matter what your interests are,
he's got one.
He has one for you. So we'll link to that later. But special shout out to Dustin for putting us in touch and setting this ball rolling.
And we kind of did this behind his back, so I feel kind of dirty in some ways, but not really, because I don't think he wants to do a car podcast, does he?
We're not really cheating on him.
No.
Although we could bring him in and talk about his Taurus.
Maybe so.
Maybe.
Yeah, we'll see if we get the first show off the road here, or on the road. All right, so some of the goals for the show. Obviously, we want everybody to know who we are, but it's really not about us. We'd like to talk about cars, like to talk about the local scene, and people that are doing things in Peoria area. Daryl, you're from Peoria, right?
Yep, in the Peoria area. There's always something going on. That's one of the things that a lot of my friends from Chicago and St. Louis area, they say, you certainly get out and do a lot. Well, that's because we're in an area where there's always something to do, and that's really, really cool. So we want to try to keep in touch about some of those developments that pop up here locally, and also we're kind of tech guys. We like new technology, So we want to keep everybody current on some of the new evolution of technology, tools, trends, things like that in the automotive world, because tech is cool. When you have it in your dashboard.
Now, it's funny you should say that because I think of you as the old car guy. I keep thinking you're going to be like the crouchy old man, get your ball off my yard with the technology.
I go both ways. It's kind of like you get your fill in one way, and then there's a time to have navigation, there's a time to just have your eyes and your ears and just take a drive for the sake of driving. So, but I like a little bit of both, and especially in this time of year. I love my air conditioning. So, the old cars are fun, but spring and fall, I'm not one of those guys that likes to take the black 47 Chevy with no air conditioning out in 98-degree heat.
Or the VW with no heat in the middle of winter.
Right, yeah. Exactly.
All right, so without further ado, let's just hop into the show.
Perfect.
All right, so we're going to do the show, we figure twice a month, I think, is kind of the goal. So, we're going to hit news. We're going to try and be topical. But obviously, we know that anything that sits too long might stink on the shelf. So, we'll try and keep the news kind of light here. The first thing, you and I talked about this, Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate, first off, talking about Trump because I feel like he's being talked about everywhere. I don't think I can turn on the news right now without talking about Trump. But we're talking about auto tariffs, and I don't think anybody's really talking about that.
Yep. The big thing early on, I think it started with the steel tariffs, and of course that I had friends overseas that brought up a lot of things like, how come you guys don't have steel mills anymore? You got like one. So there's been a lot of interesting conversation just about the manufacturing industry and steel, automotive, that kind of thing. And it's been good conversation for people to at least kind of get to know, like, how much steel does the U.S. produce? How much do we import?
Great question. Well, I mean, if you listen to Pennsylvania, we don't produce any,
right?
And I We could talk about this subject, but I don't think either you and I are experts on the Pennsylvania
I'm not
steel.
an expert on anything.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yes. And
Dutch apple pie is the closest thing to anything I'm an expert on that comes out of Pennsylvania.
Yeah. If you have any problems, first off, anything we say, info@throwinwrenches.com. Just drop an email to that spot. We both get it. So, you know. So if Daryl lies to you or I lie to you, we both see it. Okay.
Keep us honest.
Yeah. But no, what really struck out to me is that he was going right after German automakers, which I'm a Japanese car guy, as you'll find out later in the show. But to really single out one country and say, you know, whoa, BMW and Mercedes, you guys are getting away with murder, we need to go after them. That's rough speak from the President of the United States.
I did read somewhere, again, I don't know if this is 100% true, but I think for every car that we export to Germany, they sell us 3.
I believe that, but what about Japan? And, you know,
yeah, there's probably that's way different. But I think just in terms of, you know, your average German vehicle, they're not, unless you're talking like a base model Jetta or something. I don't even think you can get roll up windows in a Jetta anymore, or a Golf. I think that you'll find most of them are on the high side of, you know, price tag.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're top of the market. I don't think anybody. I mean, okay. Well, I just spent some time overseas. We didn't talk about this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I drove some hideous cars in England.
Hideous British cars, or just hideous cars in general?
Well, one of them was a Ford. It was they were both diesels, and they had the auto off feature on the engines when you come to an intersection. Oh my God! You want to talk about technology? It's coming to the United States, and you're going to hate every second of it.
Yeah, that's not. I think GM, like some of the Malibus, it's slowly starting to permeate, and it still freaks me out. But that's a whole other story.
But frankly, from what I witness over there, I don't think anybody wants American cars over there. I mean, when you see the performance and what they expect of cars in Germany, I don't think American cars cut the mustard so much. I hate to say that.
Well, you remember, like, this is, you know, not to get down a divergent path here, but, like, you remember when the Ford Focus came out in 2000-ish?
Yeah.
And
their world car.
Yeah, it was like, hey, this is designed over in Europe, and it's going to be the same in Germany here. You know, like, it handles great. They tried that before with the Fiesta and the Escort. And if that's the case, like, I know right off the bat, you know, anybody that had like an 88 Escort was like not a fan of any. But the Focus is a little different.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, this thing handles like a car that's $20,000 more.
Yeah, the Focus does have a little bit of a following, especially when we talk later on about the SCCA and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
People who understand performance cars, the Focus can be a great little tuned car. And it's certainly different than anything else in the Ford lineup. Nobody else would think, you know, tuner car. But the Focus does, you know, meet that criteria. Time will tell on the tariffs. You know, Trump talks rough. You know, he's in North Korea right now, talking tough over there. But then I heard he was coddling the Japanese. You know, after he made some tariff remarks, they called him to the carpet, and he's like a dog that barks really loud. And then once you give him attention, you know, he's just like, you know, I didn't mean that. You know, it's crazy.
Well, I'll tell you what. The other thing that's interesting is the amount of German. I mean. Yes, like Honda's got a plant in Ohio, and you know I'm sure Toyota has several.
Yep.
But the German automakers, my brother-in-law lives over in the UK, and he just purchased a Mercedes SUV several years ago, and that thing
M-Class,
the M-Class, and I think that was made in South Carolina.
I think they're made in Alabama
or Alabama, somewhere down south. A lot of those German plants, I think Mercedes has one in the south somewhere that seems to be kind of a popular place. And yeah, whenever you kind of upset the apple cart with tariffs or you know any kind of a tit for tat kind of thing, you got to take a look at it because I don't know how many other manufacturing industries are willing to invest in. You know, places like Alabama or Georgia or things like that. I mean, that puts a lot of food on the table. You know, living in southern Indiana, I was fairly close to the Toyota plant in Princeton.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, there's not much else. The railroad, and that was about it in Princeton.
No. Yeah, they pick those areas on purpose. You know, and the state gives them all the money they want, you know, for those areas.
All kinds of incentives, which we can talk about later.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that.
Illinois is no stranger to giving incentives.
No. We had Mitsubishi here for a while. We got there's still some Jeep plant, I think, in northern Illinois too.
Belvedere,
which shocks me that that's still here. But anyway, So time will tell. We'll see what happens there. Other news this week, and I was shocked. You know, as a 4x4 and an off-road guy, I consider Land Rover and especially the Discovery to be, you know, top of the line,
Yeah.
and pure British workmanship. Now, that being said, I know that they're not owned by the British anymore.
No, they haven't been since the 90s, something like that.
Yeah, so when Ford bought them, and then we talked about this Volvo and
Jaguar too.
Yeah, it was. I remember Ford was on a buying spree. They had everything. We thought they were going to rule the world, and then they quickly cut cords on a lot of those.
I heard too from some folks that it was around the same time that GM purchased Saab, and I heard that was
yeah. I forgot
all
about
they
that.
want to do is pillage the company, take the good technology. I'm like, they won't do that. And then 10 years later, it's pretty much exactly what when the Chevy Malibu was made on the same platform as the 9.3.
Yeah,
I'm like,
oh yeah,
there's something up with this.
No, Saab got completely ruined in that deal. I mean, when the Envoy is the same thing as the Saab SUV,
right?
I mean, there's Saab founders probably turning in their graves.
Yeah, that did not end well in Troll Holland or Houghton or whatever the town.
But to their credit, I believe the Swedish did buy that car company back, so now it's state owned or something like that.
They did, yeah. That's a whole other thing. I think they're in a sad state, but yes.
Yeah, but we could only hope that happens to Rover, because right now Tata has decided the Discovery, which is made in jolly old England, is going to be moved to Slovakia. And I was like, oh my God. And I think there's just something iconic about a Rover, being built outside of England. I just can't see it. I mean, I guess they built an American factory for their little Ford clone or whatever that thing was, I'd be okay with it. But we're talking about the Discovery.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm trying to think of what that small one was called.
It's basically the Freestar.
Freestyle or Freestar?
Well, the Freestar was the Ford version. I don't remember what the Rover version was, but
yeah.
But I can.
We'll look past that.
Yeah, we can, because it wasn't really it wasn't a Range Rover. It wasn't a Discovery. Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I think Land Rover, pretty much any car back in the day that was shipped to Australia were shipped as knockdown kits, right?
Yeah.
What's the Ford Transit? They make the Transit Connect that we get over here. That might change, but I think the first ones that came over were kits. They were just kind of assembled piecemeal. So, I mean, maybe they're doing that. Maybe it's still being quasi...
Wow, you're so optimistic.
British built. I don't know. I'm trying to kumbaya it over here. But, Slovakia, of all countries...
See, and I didn't even know Slovakia was a country by itself. Is it a country by itself, or is that just like a generic term for an area?
Well, Eric, you and I grew up in an era where there were countries on the map that don't exist today.
That's true, yeah.
My brain is still using terms like Tanzania and Congo, which I don't think... Maybe they exist too. But
this is where we get to the part of Throwing Wrenches where we also remind you that it's loose facts.
Right.
So,
nothing is gospel.
No.
But Slovakia, or even in its former iteration, Czechoslovakia, doesn't really have a long history of making vehicles, correct? I mean,
no, I had a friend who unfortunately passed away in his Yugo when we were teenagers, so I've never trusted the Slovakians for cars.
Wow. Is that true?
True story.
First of all, I'm sorry to hear that, but yeah.
He rolled it on Route 24, and I still say to this day, that crappy car is probably what killed him,
I'll tell you, the only thing in that was decent, and I had a friend who bought one for like $500, and he's like, "You're gonna make fun of me, but that motor is awesome. It was made, I think, designed by Fiat.
Okay.
And apparently, there's enough. It was in not the 850, but some other kind of sportier Fiat car platform. You can Google this on your magic phone later. But supposedly, there's a guy at one point who was running around like a 10-second Yugo.
I think I remember the performance Yugos, and there was let's admit, you can make a performance anything, okay?
It's true.
Look, I got a performance Vespa, okay?
Right.
There's somebody out there doing something stupid all the time. Just because you can throw money at it doesn't make it a good car, Daryl. I'm sorry.
That's a very, very good point. But yeah, as far as that goes, I think that was about it.
Yeah.
As far as
the rest of the car was a turd.
Yeah.
I mean, everything. The fit and finish was horrible. It sounded like a tin can. I think you could push the metal in and out. When Saturn was advertising, you could beat on the sides of their cars because they're made out of plastic.
Right.
The Yugo was really just doing that because it was crappy metal. Anyway.
Well, yeah. There's a reason you don't see a lot of them cruising around the highway anymore.
All right, so that's national news.
All right, we're gonna get localized here.
Yeah, let's get local. What we got?
All right, we got Rivian Automotive. If anybody in the Central Illinois region, or within earshot here, if you recall the old Diamond Star Motors plant in Normal, That was a huge plant.
Diamond Star is Mitsubishi, for those who don't know.
Yeah, it's a Mitsubishi and Chrysler joint venture.
Yeah, because they built the Sebrings and the Avengers.
Eclipse.
Yeah, the Eclipse is like crazy.
Remember when the Eclipse GSX was like the car to have?
Yeah, the Eagle Talon, remember that?
Turbocharged, all-wheel drive. They made some good stuff, but being Mitsubishi, it didn't hold up.
Well, they made electric cars towards the end there, and I think that was their death nail.
What was it called? Like the My EV or something? It was like the cheesiest name.
It was a golf cart with a roof.
It was an easy go with a roof, with cup holders and satellite radio. Well, the plant went idle. Everything kind of fizzled out there towards the very end. I think, 2008-ish or 9-ish, or I can't remember when they actually ceased production.
Mitsubishi stopped production there, probably 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay. Plant was built and I think first opened in 88. Like we were talking about, it employed a lot of people back in the day, and they had a nice, successful run. But then when you have this 1.9 million square foot plant...
It's big.
Nowadays, folks, that's too big. And when they decided to put it up for auction and have a liquidator come in, nobody wanted it. I thought, here in my brain, I'm like, maybe Tesla can move here. Maybe.
Did you really think that?
I thought, because here's the thing. Nobody wants to invest.
Daryl the Optimist. I'm going to call you that from now on.
I try. Sunshine, rainbows, puppies. No, but what I thought was... It would take so much in this economy, and this is post like real estate collapse, right? Nobody wants to invest in the money in facilities, and if you can get into a place, rehab it, suit your purpose, that's cool. But this was just too big. And factories today, they need, everything is delivery on demand. If you don't have a huge demand, or you're starting something new, or like Tesla launching new models, well, you're not quite sure how many of those you're going to need. So you don't need this giant facility. So the thing kind of sat and sat and sat. I think a liquidator came in and they were going to chop it up.
I don't remember how that happened. It seemed like it went to auction of some sort, or the city of Normal basically said they were going to... Did they buy it?
I think they did take receivership of it or something. I forget. Again, you'll have to Google this.
Loose facts, yeah.
But the bottom line is it was sold to a company called Rivian Automotive, and they are based, I believe, out of California. They were Florida for a bit, or...
I know they were in like Lexington, Kentucky or something, weren't they?
They were like 3 different iterations. It was originally called like Midstream.
And they've changed names, yeah.
Yeah, changed names. The company is kind of an interesting take. It's like, well, Rivian Automotive, what do they make? And that's the million-dollar question.
Good luck finding that.
Actually,
Google it.
It's a $5 million question because the city of Normal actually gave them $5 million in tax incentives and $1 million in grant money to make I believe, like electric vehicle.
Yeah.
Trouble is, they made a prototype, then like NASA got it, and they made this prototype a few years back. And it was made with grant money because you remember like Solyndra and like Firefly Energy.
Up here in Peoria.
Yeah, there was all these kind of Obama era or Department of Energy like, hey, we're going to make renewable, sustainable.
Yeah, Firefly is a beautiful building on the north side of Peoria, by the way.
It is. I think they were a battery. They were going to like reinvent how they do batteries.
That could be a little car factory up there at some point.
Could be. Maybe Tesla. Just kidding. But you remember what happened with a lot of those is they folded. A lot of those companies took the grant money, never really produced what they
never made $1, so eventually the money ran out.
Right, and so you have a lot of these big empty buildings with empty promises.
But I think Rivian, didn't they soak Lexington or somebody for like $25 million, something like that, over several years?
The Chicago Tribune, a couple others, like
I read the Tribune article a long time ago.
Yeah, they got the deal here in Normal, and like everybody here is like, yay, there's a buyer, and everyone's like, hold your horses here, folks. The building actually hasn't sat idle too long. In fact, the giant parking lot outside, if anybody drives through there, or maybe you've read it on another automotive website, you'll see like thousands of those TDI Volkswagens just sitting in a lot.
Yep.
And that's actually become kind of a staging area for what
And I've heard mixed reports on that. Not to get away from Rivian, but I've heard that Volkswagen's going to repurpose them or fix them or change them, or they're going to get shipped overseas. I don't know where these cars are going.
I wouldn't be surprised if they get shipped south of the border when there's no EPA. I think there's too much money wrapped in those. And I know a friend of mine who had a Passat that took the buyout or the buyback option, and it was lucrative. So if you did have one of those things and you didn't want to take it to the dealer and have them flash it and fix it, you took a nice check, they took your car back, and you either got a credit to buy something new.
A friend of mine did very well. He bought a Prius with his money. So he'd had a Prius before. He loved the TDI, but after the scam, he just felt dirty about going with them again. So.
Yeah, I can understand. But yeah, so that whole setup over there is kind of weird. Another little piece of trivia here, and I don't want to get too far on a tangent because I'm also a big movie buff, but you ever see the movie Gung Ho?
Yeah, Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton. Okay, Ron Howard. Check that one out. It's great. It kind of rehashes like how like partnerships East and West, Japanese American manufacturers kind of work and kind of don't. And so that whole building there, the whole former Mitsubishi plant that is now the soon to be former Rivian plant. Just kidding. The interesting thing about that is if you drive around the campus there, you'll see like old baseball fields and things.
Oh yeah, because it was a full facility for they really took care of their employees back in the day.
Absolutely, it's good team building.
Yeah.
You go play.
That's where you're going with the gung ho thing. All right, I was trying to figure out when he was talking about gung ho. It's an okay movie, but
a little bit. But it also just how the design, the layout, the model. Whereas today it's like, hey, I'm a startup. I'm going to take somebody else's failure and try to make something go of it. And I can only hope for like the sake of the Illinois economy, when that Mitsubishi plant closed, there was a good chunk of that workforce here locally that had pretty decent paying jobs.
Yeah,
decent
it
benefits.
is amazing though that they were able to close that factory down and they did very slowly over years and years. But the local economy absorbed most of it.
It did. I still think, though, just coming from a background that appreciates where people making things in this country or any country, anything that is created from nothing, I think is fantastic. So if they can make some sort of new whiz-bang Tesla kind of a competitor or something great, but I just think of things like Fisker Karma and some of the other.
Oh yeah, see, I like the boutique style of electric cars. But I have to wonder where somebody thinks they can just, build a factory and build cars and compete nationally. I mean,
right.
And I'm gonna go really deep on this. If Toyota or Ford or GM decided electric cars were going to be the future, what would stop them from just destroying the electric? I mean, they could destroy Tesla tomorrow if they all decide to come out with cars at the same price and make them as cool as Elon Musk.
Right.
So I wonder where this goes. I understand you probably have a cult of personality leading this little charge with Rivian. I'd love to read more about this guy. But
I can't remember his name.
But ultimately, I mean, you have to put cars on the road, and I think Musk is finding that out too.
Yeah, he is. Last I read, not doing so hot.
No, he's not. But that'll be a sidetrack. Now, the reason Rivian was in the local news is because they announced that they're here, like the end of last month. They were actually going to have a prototype out for everybody to see. What are the chances that's going to happen? You think?
Probably not. Companies like that usually don't do well with deliverables unless they've got a deadline for either funding or grant money or something's going to get
put
pulled
up
out.
or shut up, right?
Yeah, and I think they have at least locally till 2024. And anybody applying for a job there, hey, Rivian, we're coming to Normal. Great. You put an application in on the website. It's like, we won't be here for 3 years.
What?
Yeah, they give you this auto reply like,
nice.
Thanks, but no thanks. And like, we're not even going to hold your resume. It's just like, we're going to be looking more in about 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 years.
It'll be interesting to see how the next 5 years plays out. If it's similar to what happened in Kentucky and that somebody just walks off with all that money.
Yeah.
They just basically let them hold some vacant space out there. Now, in the local news that I was involved with this weekend, and kind of, Sports Car Club of America, if you're not aware of it, is an amateur league of men and women and kids who run their cars on the weekends at local airports and parking lots and just have a lot of fun. And it may seem like, when I was a kid, it was kind of an elitist thing, but it's not so much anymore. I feel like anybody who's into automobiles, can go out there and take their Focus. They can take their Mazda Miata and just go out there and bang it up and have a little bit of fun. And even bang it up, I shouldn't have said that because somebody will get the impression they could hurt their car. But no, it's a great fun time, and Central Illinois chapter is pretty active. They actually do 4 or 5 events every summer. Of course, this part of the world you can't do anything in the winter, so it's always spring, summer, and fall. But this last weekend they had Mossville, which is a Caterpillar factory, has a giant parking lot. They allow these guys to do 2 days of racing out there. There was 40 contestants each day. I know some guys who had an FRS out there and a Miata out there. It rained cats and dogs all weekend, but they still raced between the rain showers, and it looked like a lot of fun. I hated to miss this one, but I'm looking forward to the next one in Pekin.
So how long have you been kind of involved with
not long,
the SCCA? Yeah,
not long. As a matter of fact, I had some conversations with the SCCA guys, and I was shocked at how many dealers don't even acknowledge this. And I don't know why. We have a car. I work for Toyota, just so I can end that mystery. The FRS, or it's now the 86, is kind of the SCCA car. They built a class for that car, and you can basically take a stock 86 out there and have fun and race against other guys in 86s and kind of compare notes and just really, for $50, it's better than going to an amusement park. The grin that you have on your face, the adrenaline rush you get from driving your own car and testing its limits, and you become a better driver. There's just so many advantages to doing this, so much fun, and it's great for the family. I took my daughter out to our last one, and I have not seen her smile that hard, and she was jacked up on adrenaline, was all over it. There's nothing like it, so it's pretty reasonable. So I know there's clubs all over the country, and I encourage everybody to check that out.
I will say I noticed, I don't know if it's a phenomenon or if it's just becoming more approachable, but I've got several friends of mine that are about the same age, 40-ish, who are now at the point where they might have done some of that in their 20s when they didn't have any money, but they had the cool car, and now it's like the other way around. So it's like, okay, like I'm a better driver now, I got a little money, like I'm either going to take my daily or my wife's daily and we're going to just kind of dial it up a little bit, put some good sticky tires on it and go have fun. Or the other thing is they're going out and spending $1,500 on something that's maybe 15, 20 years old.
And that's my story. Yeah.
And because you have an older Celica.
Yeah, a 90 Celica. It was a $200 car on Craigslist. And
perfect. 5-speed, right?
Yeah, 5-speed. It had a blown head gasket, so just kind of to rework the whole thing. And I have the luxury of having a shop to work in, so
that certainly helps.
And I had a customer had some sticky tires, and he didn't want them anymore, and just kind of built this thing from the ground up. And but you can run the gambit on that. I mean, there's guys out there with Vipers, high-end Corvettes and stuff like that, and they literally just roll them in there as their daily driver and just have fun with them. So
it's truly about driver skill, and that's I'm so glad to see you talk about taking your daughter out there. That as a young driver too is a safe place to kind of push something to its limits. And a much better, what better of a place to do that with, a young son or daughter or a friend of, who's maybe not as experienced, than a safe, controlled environment, closed course, where they're not going to make a huge mistake. And then they can learn from it. It's like, okay, here's what happened. You DNF this round.
Yep.
Let's do it again.
Yep. No, actually, it's funny, and I didn't want to get sidetracked on this, but at one point, my daughter, I was riding with her, and she kicked me out about 3 rides in. So I'm doing it by myself now, Dad. I'm like, that's fine. She's 16. But the first run, she really oversteered and was going to wipe out. The tail was going to wipe out on it, and she steered into it and came out of it. It was beautiful. I'm like, I want to give her a high five right there.
That's my girl right there.
Yeah, she killed it.
You could take some credit and be like, it's because I taught her that.
I don't know about that. She seemed like a natural, and all day she was behind me by like 1 second. I thought, she'd be this little kid just kind of putting around, because I've seen some kids and wives out there just kind of going.
Yeah.
I drove first, she drove second, and she left nothing out there for the imagination. She put that car through hell.
Well, it's good though, and also it also trains you to prep a car for race day, and then afterwards, like, come home, we're going to change the oil. We're going to I was a little hard on this run, or
what can we do? What little things can we make different for the next time? How can I improve? Based on what I did today. So
simple things like tire pressure. I did some of this in my early 20s.
Yeah, I didn't know this.
Yeah, I raced in D stock in the Madison Sports Car Club a few times, but it was mostly having my friends ride shotgun and be like, what are you doing here? Stop shifting. Leave it in second.
I did the same thing. And I'm so used to putting my foot on the clutch, when I get in a situation where I'm going through a turn, and I did that the first 2 or 3 runs, and my best run of the day was the last run where I never touched the clutch.
Yeah.
Just put it in second gear and just hit the hell out of it the whole time.
Leave it. It was also fun. I found out some of the most fun cars on those courses are things like Rabbit GTIs from the 80s.
Yes. Yeah.
And everybody's like, that's like an 80 horsepower car. It's not. It's like, it's all gearing. It's got a smooth trans. And you know what? On a course like that, I saw them and older first-gen Miatas, which at the time, this was like early 2000s, were starting to be cheap enough where people would just flog them. I'm seeing those same cars that have been, original motor, original everything, and they're still out there just...
That's half the group out there, the Miata guys.
Miatas.
Yeah, and they're a huge class, but really, you can buy one for $2,500.
Yeah.
That runs decent, unlike that $200 Celica I bought, which I had to put $3,000 into. they can have a great time for a low entry price, and you can still have it as a daily driver or a weekend fun car. So
you bet. And for guys like myself who are maybe a little staturally, I don't know. I'm huge. I'm a huge guy. So if I have a helmet on anything, it's got to have enough room, preferably a drop top or something. Back early 2000s, I had you're gonna laugh at this, but it was a 1992 Oldsmobile Achieva SCX.
Oh God, did it have the quad 4?
Quad 4, 190 horse.
Oh jeez.
No, check this out. That Eagle Talon we were talking about.
Yeah.
190 horse turbo all-wheel drive. This thing was 190 horse with a 5-speed front-wheel drive. And it actually had adjustable suspension from the factory, the same kind of thing.
Seriously?
Yeah, it was a homologation special for IMSA Firehawk Racing.
Okay.
And it was actually an SCCA champ, 92.3. It made 1,100 of them that year, and then 593. Great little car, but like you said, quad 4, pop head gaskets all the time.
Oh yeah, left and right.
It was a great car that nobody had any idea. It's like, what is this thing? And then you hear it, about 7,800 RPM. Yeah. It's like, okay, it sounds pretty good. And then I would be, hitting cones and driving into the
Knowing
forest.
what I know nowadays in the car business, I would love just to pop the hood on one of those with a quad 4, just so I could look at it and go, it doesn't make sense to me now when I look back at that stuff.
Drivetrain was designed by TRW. It did not use EGR valves because it actually burned fairly clean. Mm-hmm. It was a great motor. I never want to own another one. Never, ever, ever. Somebody on one of the Central Illinois Auto Enthusiasts Facebook page, which we both follow and enjoy that. Somebody was posting something about Chevy Berettas, and like, we were riffing on that.
Yeah.
And then I posted a picture of the GTZ, and I'm like, these did okay. And like 4 people like, that was the best car I ever owned, or like this and that. And it's one of those, in certain company, if you say, yeah, I love the quad 4, people are like, ha ha ha. And then there's a couple who's like, you know what? You're actually right. It was a decent motor, but don't tell anybody I told you that.
Yeah, I'll never admit to it.
No, okay. Yeah. Shoot us an email if you're a quad 4 fan or not.
Daryl will write you back. Anyway,
I will.
All right, so dreaming up segments of the show, because this is the pilot episode.
Yes.
We thought about, I like the Jalopnik, what is it? The
Nice price or crack pipe?
Is that nice pipe or crack pipe. We didn't get a chance to look at those. But I will say this, and I hate to be a one-trick pony, but this week there was a car and Bring a Trailer. And so we're going to Bring a Trailer. Maybe we'll change this every time we do a show.
Stuff for sale that looks cool.
Yeah. So Bring a Trailer had a 2013 Subaru BRZ, which is the Scion FRS and the Toyota 86. But this thing was race ready. The guy had basically SCCA'd it. It had everything. It was gutted. Had roll cage. The engine had been popped out because the head gasket had blown out, which isn't uncommon on these. And the rockers sometimes blow off of them if you hit the rev limiters too much. But he had the sticky tires, and he said he had $75,000 in the car, and it had about 25 or 26,000 miles on it. And I literally watched it to the very end. A couple of us did at work, and it went for $23,000 with no reserve, which I was shocked because it's a tough call for me. You got a car that can only be used on the racetrack because he says you could use it as a daily driver, but if you've ever sat in a race seat,
no way.
And there's no passenger seat, so I'm not sure where you're going in your daily driver if you drive the thing. But for $25,000 to have a race ready car, right out of the box, you probably want to trailer it. I think it was a fair price, but and it would be a lot of fun. But I'd have a hard time. On our FRS we're using at work right now, it's a $10,000 car, and we've just tuned the suspension, and it's been a lot of fun. But man, it's a double-edged sword on these things.
It piqued your interest, though.
It did, man. It was beautiful.
You can wrap up when you're prepping something like that for just full, all-out, autocross or whatever, Trans Am, whatever your style is.
Yeah.
You can wrap up so much money.
Where do you stop? That's where I'm at with the Celica. I have tuned the suspension. I got the tires.
You do coilovers and stuff?
Yeah. I got coilovers on it, and I don't want to drop a bunch of money in the engine. I don't want to add horsepower to it. Excuse me. So I think at this point, it's just fun. Just leave it the way it is, and do as much as you can with that. But why spend $2,000 or $3,000?
Balance the blueprinted motor.
It's still going to be a Celica that's worth $500.
Well, and it's smart to do. I mean, there's that balance. You're like, hey, if I love this thing, and I can 10 years from now, I can still see myself or someone in my family running around this thing.
Yeah,
maybe. That was the thing with me. Like, I gave that Oldsmobile to my brother. Like, I had fun with it for a few years, gave it to him. He drove it through high school and college. I helped him fix, blow stuff up and fix it. And then eventually it got T-boned while he was at work. Somebody just smashed it with the curb. And it was that question, like, I got this check for insurance. I don't think I'm going to put any more money into it. It's like, no, you had your fun. It did its job. We're done.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's really cool. I admire the fact that you've got a good eye for...
oh, yeah, I don't know about that. I definitely could spend $1 if I had,
Well, but you're smart about it. And, yeah, when you're looking to bring a trailer, there's, race stuff, classic stuff, modern, cool, European, whatever. The car I picked for bring a trailer the last week and actually sold this is an oddball. I like weird stuff. It was a 79 Honda Accord Hatchback. And if everybody remembers, like, the first gen, like, old school Accords, they were
was it like a rounded, kind of a doughy look?
Yeah, it was like kind of a doughboy, like a Stay Puft Marshmallow hatchback. They were like the slightly wider Civic, that had the quad round headlights. And they were they were good cars. This thing was a 5-speed. Any old Japanese or German car, if you catch an old one, especially 4-cylinders, you want a 5-speed or 4-speed.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The automatics back then, BMW, I think, was putting in like Borg Warner stuff, so they didn't know what they were doing. Honda's early trans. Even Honda up into the 90s, some of the Accords had some trans issues, You'd hear that whine. You're like, yeah, you got about 6 months left, and then that's going to grenade. So this is 70 on that Accord. It was like a kind of a 70s light lime green, which I love. Anything that's green or like that 70s like tan or mustard or beige.
Yeah.
I love it.
No, the lime green sounds... I'm going to have to Google this one later.
Yeah, you should check this out. It sold for $5,900. Which is
it seems like tall money, yeah.
But think of it this way, and I'm trying to convince usually my wife. I'm like, think of it this way: if you were to go out today and buy a car like that, it would cost you $25,000. She's like, this is a '79 Accord. What are you talking about? But it was kind of a milestone car because this was the car that was kind of the one that put Honda on the map. Now I know everybody goes back to like the old. I think it was like the old 600 or 650, whatever, like the CVCC, like the early little tiny. Like fuel-efficient car.
The CRX and the little Civics are the ones that I always recognize. I'm waiting for you to tell me how this car put Honda on the map.
Well, what it did was it ran their patented, what they call their CVCC, or Compound Vortex Controlled Combustion, which is an early, like a high-efficient, emissions-compliant car.
Okay.
Used like early feedback carburetors, things like that. They actually ran these motors in some of their earlier cars before, when catalytic converters became mandated in 75, these guys ran these motors, and they were so clean they didn't need a catalytic converter.
Oh, wow.
So that's the one little thing. It's like, we talk today about low-emissions vehicles, zero-emission, partial zero-emissions, whatever. Honda was doing that back in the mid-'70s, early '70s, and they did it before the government mandated here in the States. Because Japan has always been... because their topography.
Oh, okay. Well, nobody wants to breathe up there, yeah. So that was always desirability.
Smog was always a huge concern, even before it was here. So kind of fascinating. The other thing, too, is I think like early 70s Corollas put Toyota on the map as far as just like rugged, dependable, cheap, like Datsun's 210 and 510, which everybody wants.
God, those old Datsun trucks, man.
Yeah.
Even the Chevy Love, which I think was that a version
I think
of
that
Datsun?
Was Isuzu. I think Isuzu made that. Same kind of thing, though. Like just rugged, dependable. The early Hondas were such tiny little things that, if you were like a single dude just commuting on the freeway in San Jose, fine. But like the average middle American wouldn't think about it until they came out with the Accord, because you could put your 2 kids and your dog in the back. It was cool. And the hatchback, the concept where you could just, hey, I'm going to, haul some lumber, and you could kind of do it with one of those. So I think it was a good car, milestone car. Nobody would think twice at a car show. They'd be just like, what's this thing doing here? But the older I get, I started to appreciate the old school Japanese stuff. And I think as a country, I think we're going to start doing that. The last few times you're talking about early CRXs, there was like an 87 or 8 CRX HF, the like highway flyer or whatever, like super fuel efficient.
I don't remember. I just remember they had the CRX model when I graduated in '89 from high school, and they had like a yellow and a red one, and basically had that little half window on the back deck, and those and they were a little 2-door.
They're cool.
They were sexy looking, and they got 50 miles a gallon back in 1989.
Yep. There was a guy who rolled into the last Cars and Coffee here and had a white one, and I remember seeing one in the dealer when my grandpa bought his Civic sedan. I'm like, why don't you get this? He's like, no, I'm getting a 4-door. Get the hell out of here. But I remember seeing the same thing. I think it was a yellow one or something. I was just like standing in the dealership, like 10-year-old, like, this is really cool. You don't
even the Del Sol. I love that. That was an early '90s car too.
That was a really neat concept. Shared a lot of parts with the Integra as far as suspension.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, a lot of the back in the day when people were doing like B18 swaps and stuff like that. Front suspension, all that swapped into the Del Sol because I think the shock towers, all that suspension geometry was interchangeable.
It would make sense, yeah. But those cars you don't even see. They must have rusted out like crazy around here. Is all I can figure.
Maybe. I know they sold for good money used. I know people's a couple friends of mine would fix them up. They get them, crashed.
Yeah, but I honestly I have not seen a Del Sol on the road in years, maybe 2 years.
Remember that there was like a neon green that they kind of had that was popular. It was like a super 90s. Like if you had
yeah, I remember it. It was
a hot pink, like
it was almost like Gremlin green, wasn't it?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
If you had some hypercolor shirt and some MC Hammer playing, I think it'd complete the look.
All right, so the final section of the show here, we're going to do a couple plugs for the local guys. I got to admit, I have not done Friday Night Lights or Cars and Coffee in the last couple months because I've just had something going on. I got kids, and I hate to use that as an excuse, but as a good parent, that's what I like to do. So
look at you being like a dad and stuff.
I know, it's terrible. Well, but my daughter actually jumped me. She goes, it was Cars and Coffee last weekend. Why didn't you tell me? And I'm like, I was busy. I'm sorry, But anyway, so the Cars and Coffee scene, it's a standard day. What are we doing here for Cars and Coffee in Peoria?
The Peoria Cars and Coffee, or Central Illinois Cars and Coffee, because it used to rotate, but now they're at Northwoods Mall in the giant parking lot side near JCPenney and the old Firestone there. You can see it from the interstate, so you can, if you're passing through good old Peoria, you'll see it there. First Saturday of every month from 8 until 11.
Until people blow out, usually 10:30 or so, and they're out of there. And they have vendors there. They got food, coffee people. And
coffee, breakfast burritos. Last time I was there, I definitely enjoyed those. Yeah. You can buy T-shirts and things like that if you want to kind of support them, but it's all done.
I just wonder where that money goes. I'd like to see the...
Liability insurance. We can talk about that. Because being in a couple other car clubs, like anytime you do like a club sanctioned or group sanctioned event, it's like, well, if somebody comes in the middle and just does something goofy, you got to have some insurance. You got to have a waiver, all this stuff like that. So that's where that does go.
So it doesn't just go in somebody's pocket.
Correct.
Oh, that's good. That makes me feel a little better.
It goes to buy 79 Honda Accord hatchbacks on the internet.
If you were running it, I imagine it's the case. And then Friday Night Lights, which I actually particularly like, especially in the summertime when it's 90 degrees outside and it gets just dusk. I don't think there's anything more fun than just kind of going over to Friday Night Lights. But they moved it to Junction City now, right? Yeah,
that's been in Junction City the last few weeks. And you can definitely check the internet if you go to Facebook and search up Central Illinois Automotive Enthusiasts. Yeah. Some really swell people run that over there. Chris Ruby, I believe is his name. And a couple other people kind of help put that on. Junction City, that is like the middle Friday of the month. Okay. And it's, I think, like 7 to 10 or something like that.
It seemed like there was 2 last... Are they doing it twice a month? Or
I think it's just the one. But
okay. I don't know. Maybe somebody else is doing some other stuff. Who knows?
Maybe.
All right. Now, you said you were going maybe possibly to a car show in Wisconsin?
Yeah, that's coming up, the Iola Car Show. It's a big car show, auction, swap meet extravaganza. It's over 3 days, July 12th through the 14th this year. If you're into antiques, anything specialty, collectible, whatever, chances are they got it there. The auction usually, years ago, it's been kind of a staple. The big one is Hershey for old car folks, Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Got it.
But the last few years, they've had some pretty high dollar stuff go through there.
So, and this is Iola, Wisconsin, which I wasn't even familiar with.
Yeah, it's in the center. I believe it's just like north of Oshkosh. It's up there a ways, but there's camping nearby, there's hotels, things like that. But this year's kind of an interesting year because they're offering kind of a show within the show. It's going to be called Malaise Days. And what that is, anybody who likes cars from, say, 72 to 95, there's a Facebook group called Malaise Motors. There's several out there, but Malaise Motors is what this is all about. A gentleman named Brian Rob Davis set this up, and it's basically to cars that we grew up in as kids of the 70s and 80s. You'll appreciate this because if you like Gremlins or you like 72, Volkswagen Beetles or something. You can
76 Cutlass Supreme is what my mom used to have, a two-door in burgundy.
With like the 50-pound doors.
Oh, yeah. I still think of that car as like a dead sexy beast. You know, it's just one of those things.
They are, but like a lot of the cars from that era, they just didn't hold up. The rust, sheet metal, quality issues, things like that. So it's kind of a group that celebrates that. So they're going to have a show place kind of carved out within that show for cars of that era. So if you really appreciate that kind of, I just say the Malaise era vehicles, July 12th through 14th, Iola, Wisconsin. You can check it out. There's also a website for Malaise Motors. I believe it's malaismotors.com, but check it out.
Awesome. And then last but not least, Daryl had a great point. Wheels of Time Museum has been in Peoria forever, and you've probably been there, and you maybe even forgot because it's been so long ago. I know I've taken my kids there a couple times, and we've done field trips there countless times. But man, that is a resource. It is a fun time. It's a great little getaway, and it's here in our backyard.
Always looking for volunteers too. So if you're somebody or you know someone who's got an interest, even if it's things like dusting the cars or just kind of sweeping up and being a docent, whatever you want to do, I have been told that they always have volunteer opportunities.
Awesome. All right. So our website, again, if you just stumbled through this on iTunes or Google Play, it's throwinwrenches.com, and we pitched the G on that, right? Is it just...
Yeah, we pitched the G because it's cool to not use G's. Yeah. I don't know, just kidding. I don't know. We saved some money by throwing the G.
Yeah, we did. We saved some money. Well, actually, somebody else had throwingwrenches.com, and they sell records. I'm not sure what that was all about, but anyway, I think throwing's better.
We're gonna have fun with that until the cease and desist comes in.
Yeah, I've been there. So anyway, stop by the website. There's not a whole lot there right now. We'll throw some links up to some other stuff we're doing, and we'll try and just post some stuff. But don't get too excited yet. Also, if you have any comments for either Daryl or myself, info@throwinwrenches.com, and I may make a contact us page on the website yet too. So, all right, well, that's it for us. Thanks for listening.
We got to go fix some stuff that we broke, probably.
Yeah. I got plenty to do.
Actually, I do have plenty of projects in my garage, but we'll probably talk about that next time because I haven't even dived.
We didn't even talk about your tragedy. Oh my God!
No.
Now that gives us a reason to talk next time, and I'm sure I'll break something in the meantime because I'm headed out west. We even talk about that. Yeah, the forest fires, all that. So we'll get to that the next show. All right. So for Throwin Wrenches, this is Eric Stahl.
I'm Daryl Scott.
See you next time.